have it, to share it with everyone. Welcome. So tonight I've asked Margaret Bass, who is our online librarian for Varsity College, who is there to support you all, to actually just come on and give us some guidelines for the APA referencing, because I see there was a lot of people that struggle. Both Kath and I have discussed it for both groups. Both groups struggled with their referencing, so hopefully this will set aside any fears you have and prepare us for the second assignment. So Margaret, can I hand this session over to you to run? Guys, if you've got any questions, I'm sure Margaret will answer them. You can pop them in the chat like usual, or otherwise save them till the end. But Margaret, if you're there, can I hand over to you?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. And I hope that I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I don't want you to struggle with this. And I also want you to understand what you're doing so that you're not, and once you understand what you're doing, then it makes it easier, and it's not like an arbitrary thing. There's a reason for it. The first thing I actually want to say this evening is that referencing is not rocket science. What is hard to do and what you should be focusing on is understanding your subject, writing assignments, doing research, etc., etc. So let's not make referencing into this great load sitting on our shoulders. It's simply a mechanical format that's used when you're writing academically. You're not even expected to do it on your own. You have a comprehensive guide to help you. And when you get stuck, you can always ask me. One thing that I can promise you is that as time goes on, referencing will become more automatic and you'll do it without even thinking. Okay, so the basic premise of referencing is that every single time you include in your work any idea, theory, statistic, quotation, or any source that is not your own, you need to add an in-text reference in the body of your work. This consists of a name and a date, and this is a shortened, abbreviated version of the full reference that appears at the end of your work, and it appears in the reference list or bibliography. The bibliography is an alphabetical list of all the sources you've read, which includes the in-text referencing. Okay, so we in-text reference or cite in the body of our work for various reasons. And I'm just going to talk about them so that you understand why you're doing them. Okay, so the first thing is that we need to acknowledge that these are not our ideas, and we have to give the credit to the creator of the idea. So that's number one. Then it also gives your discussion and your argument credibility and weight if you state that your argument is based on a seminal source or an author who is well known in the field. Then another reason is that your reader might want to go to your source to read further, for example, or to check on something. And also the fourth reason, and there are many more, and these are just the ones I've highlighted, it indicates a standard of academic writing, and when done competently, shows attention to detail and care, which then affects the reader's impression not only of your writing, but extends to the research as well. So if this person has been meticulous in their writing, that's what I would think, chances are that the research that they've undertaken will be equally thorough. Sloppy work doesn't give a good impression. And then finally, and also very importantly, referencing protects you from allegations of plagiarism, and nobody wants that behind them or on their their credits or whatever it is. You don't want that following you around. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how we do this. There are two parts to referencing. And the in-text referencing is used in the body of the assignment, in your work, in your writing, and consists only of a name and a date, not a web address, not the name of the book and the author, not any other information, not that you could possibly think of. It is only a name and a date. And then the in-text reference, so there are two things, the in-text referencing in the body of the work, and then this talks to the list of works cited, which is the full reference in the bibliography or reference list at the very end of your work. Okay, so now when we use in-text referencing, we can use them in two ways. So now we're only talking about the referencing, the references or citations that we are going to use in the body of our work. You can either paraphrase the source by using your own words, summarizing an idea from somebody else's piece of writing, or you can quote directly from any other piece of writing. I want you just to look at this book that I found online. Okay, so it's an ebook. I managed to look at it. I managed to look inside the book. This is the outside. I just want, because I want you to see the examples that I'm using. It's called a critical It's called A Critical Introduction to Psychology. And as you see at the bottom here, there's an editor, and his name is Robert K. Bashara. That's all I know. I think, though I'm not sure at this stage, that the publisher is Nova. Just remember that when you are referencing, you shouldn't take the information about the book from the outside, but you take it from the inside cover behind the cover of the book. That is where you will find all the information. So I just wanted to show you that, because the next thing I want to show you is what it looks like if you're paraphrasing. And there are different ways of paraphrasing. So in the first example, I'm using Bashara's ideas, but rewriting them in my own words. When I do this, I can paraphrase the content and add the in-text reference or the in-text citation at the end of the sentence. So it either comes at the end of the sentence or the end of a short paragraph. So all I've had to do here is put the name of the editor, who's Bashara, and the year of that this book was published, and I've already seen inside, so I already know that it was 2019. And so that's one way of doing it. Okay, so the first one is I just lop it onto the end of the sentence. In the other way of doing it, I can include the author's name in the body of my text, but including the date in brackets after the name, as I've done in the second example. Stylistically, you should use both when you're constructing your essay, when you're writing. Using only, it's just good for style reasons, and using only the one way is kind of boring, and it's kind of lazy as well. So you should use both methods. You should embed it in your text as well. And you should either embed it in your text and then put the date in brackets, or you put it at the end. Jean, the in-text referencing is exactly the same as the Harvard style. It's just the format that is slightly different. Okay. So now let's look and see if we had a direct quotation and what that would look like. So I've taken a direct quotation from the book. And in the first instance, as you see, I have to put it in inverted commas, because this tells your reader that these are not your words, okay? And at the end of it, I have to add a page number so that the reader can find the place of the quotation easily. And we know that this is not always possible. And we know that, for example, on a website, there's often no pages. But if you can possibly do it, please add it. And then try not to use too many quotations in your work. They shouldn't make up more than 10% of your work. So in the first example, once again, I've just put the editor's name at the end, and I've included, and this is the format for APA. It's not the same as Harvard, mostly. So you put a comma after the date and page 3, and if you turn to page 3 in this book, you will find this quote. And then again, just an example of how you should embed it in your text, where I've said here, according to Bashara, philosophy remains important to psychology because it raises questions about this larger than human knowledge truth. And you see the sentence runs with, and that's why the date is in brackets, because the sentence runs without it, and we just stick a bracket the date so that it runs properly. Okay. Right. Now I've opened the book, and I have to confess here that this is really a simple book to reference. It's really pretty basic. And we have an editor only, and it should be 100% straightforward. If there is more than one author, you will list them, surname first in the full reference, followed by the initials, as many as there are. If the book states that it's another edition, a second edition or more, you need to add the edition statement after the title. You never mention a first edition. That's why this one is not a first edition. I mean, it's not mentioned, it just says that. Now, often here, when there are editions, there'll be a whole list of years. There'll be a whole list of years with the second edition 2020, third edition 20. You are looking for the edition, the actual edition and the year. We're not interested in whether it was printed in that year or whether it was distributed in that year. We are interested in the year of the edition comes out. So make sure that you check that out. Okay, so let's now look at how we would do this one author. So firstly, I've just written a list, and I don't know, somehow it's all gone funny, and please excuse that. There's a numbered list of how you would construct it. And here I've got it underneath that first, the name of the author comes, and both his initials. And in this case, he's an editor, so that comes in brackets. And also when you're constructing the full reference, you'll see that each element of the reference is separated by a full stop. And always be aware of that. So each element is separated carefully by a full stop. After that comes the date in brackets, full stop, and then we get the title, which is a book title, which is always in italics. And then after that comes the publisher. And here, when you have a publisher, I don't want you to put in, sorry, I'm not sure why this is jumping around, but it's not staying where I want it. Okay, so here the publisher is Nova Science, which I found the full name inside the book. And I'm not interested in adding on the end of it Pty Limited and Co. and Brothers, just the name of the publisher. And then if it's an electronic, if the book is electronic, you need to add the link afterwards. So you'll see that electronic, that it's the exact same reference, full reference, and this is a full reference that's going to appear in the reference list. It's exactly the same, except on the end, I've just added on a link. So you have to add on the link if the book is electronic. If you can find the DOI, that is the best scenario. The DOI is a digital object identifier, and it's unique and a stable number. If you can only find a URL, that's also okay, but these are sometimes very long and not always stable. You are supposed to omit the URL if it comes from a restricted source like a database, which you can see in this case, it has. For example, EBSCOhost, because your reader might not have access to it, but I still like to include it, especially for you guys, because your OTs do have access to this, and they might want to follow up or check or read or find something interesting about it. So you can see I've added this very long URL that tells you that I've got it from EBSCOhost. Okay, is that okay for books? There isn't a full stop at the end of the URL. The whole point of referencing, just as I'm thinking of it, is that you want your reader to find your source the easiest and quickest way. You don't want to irritate your reader. So that URL should take them, whatever you're doing, however you're referencing, that URL should take them to that exact book. If you're doing a journal article, that they should be able to find the journal article, whether it's physically or electronically, immediately. Lou, you don't add this is APA, you don't put an access date on anything. Kate, how would we put a URL for EBSCO for another reader than you just omit it if you actually, but I would rather not in this, unless there's a DOA. EBSCOhost has, DOIs. A lot of articles on sources on EBSCO do have DOIs, look for them, or they have a permalink or something like that. You don't include online available at, and I'm going to show you how to do a website shortly, so don't stress. So your aim is to direct your reader to your source. Think about that all the time. I'll show you, Rebecca, how the DOI in a little bit of just a further along it. You'll see how it works, but you want to send them straight to the source. So if you can't check when you're doing your bibliography, check that all the links work and everything, because you really don't want to irritate the person that's reading your work. Okay, so the next slide, I know is one of your psychology textbooks, and it's a horrible one to reference. So I thought I'd have a look at it and go through it with you, because in this case, it's got an author, and unfortunately, I just have to. My caveat is that I haven't been able to get inside it, so I can't. I'm not sure of my data. As I explained to you, you should look inside. I've just taken the information from the cover, and I had to look it up to find the date, etc. But you should always look inside, and I don't know what is inside. So Weiten is the original author of this book, and he's obviously been, and I see that there are numerous editions, and he's been publishing it for years, but they've made a South African edition. Rosh, you don't add the city in APA. So there's numerous editions, and they obviously Hassim has come in to do the South African edition. So he still has the main credit, Weiten. So I would put in Weiten W and then in brackets 2018, then the title. Now in the title, and here I just want to mention that there's a subtitle, and there's always a colon between the psychology and the subtitle, which is themes and variations. And also please note that we do minimal capitalization. So capital letters are only for proper names at the beginning of sentences and the first word, letter of the first word after the subtitle, except when you're doing journal titles, which is a proper noun, etc. Okay. If a book, sorry, I'm just reading your query, Kerry-Ann. If a book has only an editor, no author, that was the one I already looked at. You just put ED in brackets after the author's name. Okay, and it's in brackets. So in this case, the addition statement, as I explained to you, is always after the title. So the title is in italics. Then I've included the editor to give him credit as well. And the addition statement comes after the title. So I've included here the third South African. We understand that because it's after the title that I'm talking about additions, because this is like a language you have to learn. And then the publisher is in Cengage, and as somebody just asked, there's no place of publication anymore used in APA. Okay, so that shows you how to, this is an awful book to reference, I must be honest, but to cite. But the citation would be, the in-text would be Weiten and in brackets 2018. Okay. All right, now I want to look at referencing websites. And I know that you use Simply Psychology quite extensively. I've seen from people that have contacted me as well. And I'm going to show you, because you use it so much, I'm going to show you two kinds of referencing websites. And one is when you have an author, and one when you don't have an author. Yes, if the title of the book has capital letters at the beginning of every word, yes, you change it, unless there's a proper name, a proper noun in the title. But the first letter of the first word gets capitalized, and after the subtitle, the first letter of the first word. Yeah. You don't copy exactly what you find online. Okay, so now I'm interested in this article, which is Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. There's an article in Simply Psychology, and you can see underneath there that it's by Dr. Saul McLeod, and it's published in 2007, and it's been updated in April, the 4th of April 2022. Now, first of all, you never include, and I'm just telling you this because I keep seeing it, you never include any honorifics. So I'm not interested that he's a doctor or a professor or whatever he is. When you're referencing, that all gets excluded. The second thing is, it says here that it's updated. It was originally published in 2007. So I guess this is like a newer edition. Okay, we are looking at the text below is an updated text from 2022. So I'm interested in that date. I'm not reading the 27 article. I'm reading a more recent one. Okay, so let's see how it's done. First of all, the in-text. And I've shown you both ways of doing it, a quotation and a paraphrase. The first one I've paraphrased, and I just put after the paraphrase, McLeod 2022. You see, I'm using the more recent date. And if I was going to embed it and use a quotation, include in a quotation, I've written according to McLeod, 2022. Needs lower down in the hierarchy must be satisfied before individuals can attend to needs higher up. Okay, this is not a journal article. This is simply a page on a website. Okay, a journal article looks very different, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. This is not a journal article. Okay, so let's look how you do it exactly. Again, with the author, and it's the same routine, just tweaking here and there. The author comes first, McLeod S, and then the date. And here I've included the date, April the 4th. If it's when it's available, include it. If it's not, leave it out. Then I've got the title of the article, which is Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, and it's in italics here. And then I've included the page, the website name, because otherwise it wouldn't appear. And I've just stuck you just need to stick the URL right at the end, and that is your reference. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward and simple. And all this is available you see quite clearly in the guide. Okay, now let's look at a site. Let's look at an example when we don't have an author. Now I've chosen the site Stats SA just to alert you to the fact that sometimes, if you know that the information that you're sourcing can change, and this is a perfect example, because if you are referencing some statistics from this site, you actually need to add a date somewhere of the day that you retrieved this from, because it can change tomorrow. So there is a way of doing it. You add retrieved, say 19 May from, and then you give the site. But again, this is very clearly written out in the guide. But in this case, I haven't done that. I haven't included that. I've actually found an article on Stats SA that I want to reference. So I've done that. And here it is. In this case, I start, because I don't have an author, so I'm starting with the website name. And after that, I've again included the date because I had it. And then I've the title of the article that I found comes up, and you can see the capitalization again, that it's minimally done. And then I've added on the end the URL. And the in-text reference in this case will be Stats SA 2022. Okay, is everybody clear with that? So I've given you an example with an author and without, and you'll see that I haven't got again here after at the end of it. I haven't repeated Stats SA because I don't need to. It's already there. Okay, now this is for you, Kate. I want to just talk to you about referencing a journal article. Now, a journal is simply an academic magazine. It's also called a periodical because they are published periodically. This can be weekly, monthly, or even seasonally. So it can come out every week. It can come out 4 times a year, summer, winter, autumn. It'll be etc. Or it can be, and if it's a newspaper, which is included in this category, it will be published every day. Now, they're great places to find information because they can be published really quickly, soon after a conference, or when something new is discovered, or there's new data that is produced. So you get current, up-to-date information, and that's why you're encouraged to use them. A book takes much, much longer to produce. So it's great to be able to have access to journal articles. Libraries keep the physical copies of journals, but we are very fortunate in that we subscribe to a number of databases that publish them online, like EBSCOhost, like Sabinet, and even Google Scholar is a great place to look. Okay, so we're going to look at the Journal of Abnormal Child Psychology, and I'm going to show you how we reference an article from inside. Now, this is slightly different. Again, but it's the same format. Okay, we start with the author, the date, etc., etc. So in this case, and why I've chosen this is because there's a whole list of authors here. So we have, and between each author, this format you have to follow. There's the first one, there's a full stop and a comma, and the next one, there's a full stop and a comma. Then finally, and Kluver, comma, L, and a full stop, and we go on to the next element of the reference, which is the date, which is 2016. Then we go on to the title. And it's a whole long title about predictors of mental health resilience. See the capitalization, it's minimally capitalized. And then we have the journal title. And here, in this case, the journal title is italicized, never the article, okay? So, and because it's the name of a journal, it is in capital letters, the beginning of each word. The other thing that is italicized in this in a journal is the volume. You'll see there after the title of the journal, it's volume 44 and issue 4, okay, and page number 719 to 730. Now, if you want to go to that, you go into a library and you're looking for this this article about resilience of children who have been parentally bereaved, you can find that journal. You can open the Journal of Abnormal Psychology, Child Psychology, go to issue 44, volume 44, issue 4, turn to page 719, and you will find this exact article. Okay, but if you look at it for it online, I have there added the DOI at the end of it, which is very short, and you just simply put DOI colon and add it in there. So that's the way it's done at the end of the reference. If it was a print, I had looked at the print version, I would just stop at the end of the pagination. I'd end it off at 730, page 730. Does everybody understand that? So a book title, the title of the book is always italicized. For a journal, the journal title is always italicized, and the volume number is always italicized. Now, the in-text reference here is interesting. Sorry, is that a punctuation error between parentally bereaved? It's not a punctuation. It's actually, when I loaded it to this platform, it's made funny things, and it's not supposed to be a space there. Yes, you're right, but there's not supposed to be a space there. It's just when it's done funny things with my slides for some reason, and I'm not sure why. Now, the in-text reference is interesting because we don't. It's really difficult to include all those long authors, and it interrupts the flow of your writing. So what you can do is just put in the first author, and you can do that from the first time you in-text reference this journal article. You just write in Collishaw et al., which means and others, and it's Latin for et alia, so it's an abbreviation. So you put a dot after the AL, and then a comma and 2016, and that's it. And again, because they talk to each other, the in-text reference and the full reference, you will turn straight to your alphabetical list, and you will still find Collishaw in your reference in the right place. Okay. if you access, yes, the DOI is the link, Rebecca. It's the exact unique number for this item, and you should go straight to it. Okay. All right. I think this is all being recorded, so it will be available for you to look at again if you need to. Okay. So let's look at now at the bibliography or the reference list. Now, these are all the items, and I'm just quickly squizzing at them to make sure that it hasn't, it's put in spaces where they're not supposed to, and I'm not sure, and I'm not sure why it's been doing that. Yes, I'll send them to you, Rebecca. Now you can see the bibliography or the reference list, you can call them either. They have got a different reasons. We use them differently, but in this case, you can use either. This is an alphabetical, unnumbered list of all the sources that you've used. There's a space between each entry, and each entry should be indented. I'm not sure, Rebecca, if you insist on indenting, but, oh, I see that it's taken the indenting out here again. But it wasn't when I loaded this. I must apologize. I wanted it to be correctly according to the APA 7th edition, but it's actually taken it out. But you are supposed to indent. I don't know if your OTs need that from you. And this should be at the end of your assignment on a separate, on its own page. Okay. Now, just to end, I want you to always use the style guide when you're writing. And please pay attention to all the nitty-gritties, which I've tried to talk about in this session to show you how important they are. When to use capital letters, what part of the reference needs italics, the spacing, punctuation, the format. Because when I'm a researcher and I'm looking at for something, I can see exactly what I'm looking at because I understand the language. I'm looking at a journal article, or I'm looking at a book, and and all those kind of quirks alert me to that. I would suggest that every single time you find some information that you want to use in your assignment, look at it carefully first and figure out what it is. Does it have a volume, issue, and page number? Then it's a journal article. Is it a blog? Or does it mention that it's a thesis or dissertation? Or it's conference papers from a conference? Once you know what it is exactly, then you can turn to the style guide, where it gives instructions on how to reference this particular source. Because otherwise, you just don't know what to do and where to start and how to do it. But if you just think to yourself, what is this now I'm looking at? I'm looking at a website with an author. Okay, I can now turn to the exact place in the manual, and I will find out how to do this. So let's sum this up. You place an in-text citation in the text of your work when the information is not your own. You make a corresponding full reference in the reference list by meticulously copying the instructions in the guide. And when you get stuck or have a wobbly, you're welcome to contact me. Okay, let me just see. Oh, yes, thank you. That question has been answered. The indent is just a tabbed in. Okay, and I don't know if you are required to do it. The 7th edition of the APA referencing guide does ask for it, so that that's why I've used it. Okay. In an essay introduction, it doesn't matter if it's an introduction or conclusion. If there is information in that introduction or conclusion that is not your own, then you include an in-text reference. Okay. I've tried to simplify it, and I want you to understand why you're doing it. And I hope that has helped you. Okay, are there any other questions for me?
Margaret, Margaret, thank you so much. John has got a question there, but I just wanted to for you just to clarify. I think what the students struggle with is picking up, like, what is their own words and then what is paraphrased words. So if you're writing, for example, it asks you about Freud, and you say Freud was a Austrian psychoanalyst born in 1923. That could be got from anywhere. It's your own words because it's almost general knowledge in inverted commas. Whereas if you're citing it, so there seems to be a little bit of confusion that I think students feel that every sentence must be cited and struggling to interpret when something is their own words and when something could be considered someone else's idea. I don't know if you can maybe just help.
Yeah. Well, you actually, the rule is that you don't cite for common knowledge, like the moon is round. Everybody knows that. Or Nelson Mandela was the president of South Africa. Everybody knows that. But Freud, that was born in 1885, whatever it is, where did they get that from? If you know, I mean, if you looked it up in a dictionary or if you saw it online, then include the reference. It's common, anything that you don't know yourself and that you've had to look for, there should be an in-text reference. You don't need an in-text reference for common knowledge. With statistics and facts, you have to say where you got it from. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Yeah, that's sort of answered that question for us.
Let me just see what Keshmi is saying here. No, Keshmi, this is different. APA is different from Harvard, and it's more simple and actually easier. With Harvard, you have to include all the names the first time you mention them in an in-text citation. But with APA, you can jump straight in and just use the first author and say et al. From get-go. You don't have to ever include all the authors. Don't forget, all the authors and all the details will be in the reference list. So anybody coming after you will be able to find it quickly. And that's what you're trying to do. Give everybody coming after you access to your sources. So you don't need to mention them all the first time you in-text them. Okay. Just let me, there was somebody else. Okay, how do you in-text a YouTube video? There is a formula and it's simple. Just follow it in the manual. It tells you exactly how to do it. And follow the formula. Okay. Right. And all social media, etc., etc. It shows you how to do it. Let me just see. In Harvard, yes. You include all the names of the first time, and then afterwards you can do the first name and et al. Only. But you have to say first time, and I'm not sure why that is actually. But in Harvard you do mention them all the first time if you're doing an in-text reference. I hope that you all understand the concept of this now. That when you are using information that you've had to look for or you didn't know, then you add an in-text reference. In APA, it is incorrect to use all the names in APA. You wouldn't. You would just start like I showed you in that journal reference. You would start with Collishaw et al. 2018. Harvard, yes. The first time you mention them, you mention all the authors, all of them. There's 6 or it's for 3 authors and more. If there's 2 authors in APA and Harvard, you have to use the 2 authors and include them. It's only for 3 or more authors. Okay. Right. Anything else? And don't forget, just drop me a line. On the front of this of my slides, there's my email address. Just drop me a line and I can answer you quickly if you're not sure about anything. Please just contact me. Okay. And I hope that this isn't a pain in the neck. I promise you it's going to come to you automatically. Okay. Bridget, let me see what your question is.
I'll answer Bridget's question or just clarify it for you, Margaret. Their one question in their assignment was they had to do a side-by-side table where it compared, for example, Freud and Jung. And then yes, the table, a lot of people put their citation under the in-text reference under the table, but because the table, it's almost like it was writing paragraphs, but just in a table format. Yes. So the in-text needed to be in the table alongside the idea, not under the table, because if they put the in-text under the table, it's like the entire table is being cited to a source.
Yeah.
So that was the thing, is that when they were writing, regardless, it might say it's a table, but the style of writing was still essay style writing within the table. So that's the context.
Okay, understand.
Okay. And Margaret, just one more quick question. And again, I always say to everybody, please choose your sources appropriately. So remember, we're always looking at academic sources. So just be really clear on what constitutes an academic source. So you stay away from YouTube videos really for psychology. Your primary source is going to be books and journal articles predominantly, because even websites, the Simply Psychology is written by a doctor, and I went and I clarified, I dug into it, and I made sure he was a credible academic source. So although we use Simply Psychology in this, it can be classified as an academic source because I've checked it, but there's a lot that aren't. So it's really imperative to choose your sources appropriately, is just the one thing I need to add.
Can I just add to that also? Just Kate, you can email me directly. That's absolutely I just want to really reinforce what Rebecca's saying, because that's why we encourage you to use the databases. A very big reason, because when you are searching on there, first of all, you can limit your searches to scholarly, peer-reviewed sources only, and that's what you're getting, and you're getting academic sources. When you go online, somebody asked me the other day how to reference something. It looked very similar to Simply Psychology, but it was a wiki. There was no authors on it. Anybody could have placed an article on it, and then you would go unwittingly and reference it. There's no idea of who the author was on that site, with the date was it published. And I said, this looks a bit dodgy, and if I was you, I would kind of avoid it. But the student did. But it's quite hard to work out whether a site is good to use or not. And that in itself is a whole session on its own. But so go through the accredited sources, and you can use Google Scholar also if you need to. But go through the channels that we provide for you. Okay.
Thank you. That answered that nicely. So stay away from dodgy sources, YouTube videos. Use the database that's given to you, because that's where you get the proper academic peer-reviewed sources.
Correct.
Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any more questions while Margaret is here? I will upload the recording for everyone who wasn't here, but it's been incredibly useful. And I appreciate your time, Margaret, for spending it with our students. So on behalf of our, yeah.
And also, it's nice for me to introduce myself to them so they know who they're emailing when they writing to me. So I'm available for them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Crash courses on YouTube. Crash courses on YouTube are not academically sound sources. It helps you with your information, but don't use them or cite them because you don't know who recorded it, where they're from, whether they're credible. Stick away from things that you know are not academically sound. Okay, guys, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. So I just want to say thank you. Hopefully we've broken down the barriers, and Margaret, your inbox will be flooded with requests for assistance.
That's fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Margaret. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.